Hey everybody, it's Colton for MMOHuts.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at the basic controls and mechanics for MapleStory 2. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and dive right in. First up, I want to point out that I have my controller on screen. As you can see, I'm pushing buttons now, and you can see them light up on the screen, so if you're curious about how I'm interacting with the world, you can see exactly what buttons I'm referencing and what I'm pushing on your screen right now. Alright, so the first thing that you'll notice about MapleStory 2 is that it uses a control scheme or controller setup that's a lot like Final Fantasy XIV if you've played it with a gamepad. You have your basic movement on the analog stick, you control the camera and its different settings with the right analog stick. As you can see, I'm moving that up and down and giving people motion sickness. You've got jump assigned to the A button on the Xbox One controller. X is your interact with people or use doors button, which I'm going to go ahead and do because I'm turning in a quest right now, or continuing the main story quest. Y serves as your basic attack button, and B opens the game menu. So if you want to quit the game, open your graphics settings, sound, other options, you can do that through the B menu. The D-pad allows you to open things like your inventory by pressing right, character screen by pressing left, down opens your skill tab, and up opens a channel screen for social purposes. I'm going to go ahead and use the X button to go to the next room, and I'll see if we can't get into some combat. A lot of the mechanics for the game are not ultra different from most MMOs that you've played. Combat happens in real time, so you are avoiding attacks in real time like you would in an action RPG, much like MapleStory, except in 3D instead of 2D this time. This is going to trigger a cutscene, which in the hopes of avoiding spoilers for you, I'm going to skip. I hit B during a cutscene and then select to enable mouse mode, and left L3 allows you to click on things with mouse mode. I don't recommend using mouse mode with the controller because the analog stick, like even right now I'm barely pushing it, and it as you can see, it just picks up speed like crazy. So I use an actual mouse for all of that. And that's the really the ideal way to play this, in my opinion, is to... Oh god, this is cool. Is to play with a mouse, or with a controller for most actions and use a mouse and keyboard for menuing. Now, to activate my skills, I'm holding left trigger and pressing the face buttons and the D-pad on my controller. This is, like I said earlier, it's a lot like Final Fantasy XIV. In fact, that's almost identical to Final Fantasy XIV. And quests are fairly standard MMO fare. You're gonna do a lot of fetching and going to different maps, killing X number of monsters, activating portals, and picking up crafting elements and things like that. The game, one thing that I really like about the game in terms of its core mechanics and how it plays, is it doesn't throw too much at you at one time. A lot of your more hardcore MMOs throw millions of mechanics at you all at once, and they kind of expect you to pick them up very quickly. And MapleStory is a little bit more casual, and that's fine. You know, it's okay for MMOs to be a little more casual, a little more relaxed. And plus, you get to fly giant robots. So it has that going for it as well. Alright, now this boss fight that came up is actually a good time to talk a little bit about how bosses work in this game. Some of them, like this guy, have attacks that home on you, and you can see that the floor is a grid. Some bosses will have attacks that take advantage of that grid. Others, like that rolling attack, will not. It's really just a matter of getting out of the way. One of the tools that MapleStory gives you from the very first minute you start combat at level 1 is the ability to dash. Now, this robot can dash at a lot shorter of an interval than your actual character will be able to. The dash has a little bit of a cooldown on it, so you'll want to make sure you're using it effectively and with good timing to really make the most of it.
New mail has arrived.
Alright, now that we've finished our giant robot times, we use X to advance conversations, and then, like I said before, we use right to open the D-pad. Now, one of the things I love about the interface of this game is whenever you have a piece of gear, I'm gonna claim this real quick, whenever you have a piece of gear that is better than what you currently have equipped in a slot, it shows you this icon right here. It looks like a little box with a sword next to it, and it opens your inventory, and as you can see, we have a chest piece that's better, and pants that are better in terms of... Now, it judges whether or not they're better based on gear score, so you'll have to use your best judgment as to whether or not they are actually better or worse than what you're wearing, based on what kind of build you're going for. They also give you notifications for when you have unallocated skill points, and when you have mail in your mailbox. Mostly the mail that I've been getting is coins that you get. Basically, you get a special kind of coin you can use in the store for every interval of time that you play. I think the first one's at 15 minutes, then you have one at 30, and then an hour of playtime per day. And I don't think you get any more beyond that. Don't quote me on that, though. I'm still relatively new to the game. And I just kind of click them when they pop up and let it do what it do from there. And then let's spend that unallocated skill point. Now, this is another mechanic you'll want to become familiar with very early on, because this is where you're going to decide basically what kind of build you want to have. Now, I'm a rune blade, so I use a lot of sigils. Elemental, basically they're like spell swords if you're Dungeons & Dragons savvy. They use elemental spells on their swords, and then that changes the properties of their abilities. Right now, the only elemental sigil I have is fire, and I like to keep that up, so I'm going to go ahead and put that on my sword. They last for about 30 minutes. Now, this notice says I still have a piece of gear that is better than what I'm using. Ah, there it is. I got a better sword. Cool. And then, of course, when you're out in the world doing your questing, you will have this arrow, this giant gold arrow that you see around my character that will guide you to your objectives. It only works for story quests, for basically your main quest line, the epic quests. There's not one that I found for exploration goals, and there is not one for the world quests that I'm aware of. Speaking of the exploration goals, that's one of the things that the exploration goals are one of the things I like the most about this game. When you get to a new area, you're given a set of like optional objectives that give you a decent amount of XP, but they also help you become more familiar with the area. Now, I didn't play MapleStory 1, so I do not know if those were a thing in that game. So I apologize. I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments, but we have an optional objective to check out the view of the area through binoculars. So now we've done that. This area kind of reminds me of New Donk City from Super Mario Odyssey for what it's worth. And of course, your character will have resources that they need to use, like, for example, my character uses Spirit. Obviously, spellcasters will have mana or something similar to use. I haven't tried a spellcaster yet, so I'll know more about that once I've actually had some more hands-on time with it. And then, of course, one thing I like that this does better than Final Fantasy XIV, or that in terms of the controller gamepad setup, is you get a third set of skills here on left bumper. So you've got left trigger and right trigger, and instead of scrolling through like bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, like you can do in Final Fantasy XIV, they give you the option to set up a third array of skills. And I think that's because there's a little bit less going on with the skills and a lot more things you'll have to do with items and the like in this game than there is in 14, but that's all basically theory craft. I'm still really new, so I haven't quite figured everything out yet. Now, another thing I enjoy about this game is it introduces you to mounts very quickly. In fact, I already have a flying mount, which after I kill these pigs, I will show to you.
I need more spirit.
All right, so here's my flying mount. We are flying away on some balloons. And it also gives you a ground mount really early. So I'll go ahead and disable my balloons, and I'll mount up on my giant angry-looking duck. He's pretty cool as well. But that's all standard MMO stuff. One of the things that's not quite standard in MMOs is the ability to buy a house. You can actually buy houses in different places in the world based on what channel you're in. And these contracts cost gold, which are the standard currency that you get. As you can see right now, I have 112,000. I've been playing for about, maybe I've got 5 hours in the game. And this contract in particular costs 36 million. And they only last for 30 days, and of course different land plots have different costs and different benefits. And then, of course, if you want to extend your contract by another 30 days, you can do so by paying the fees, which for this house is another 32 million. Now, I'm not 100% sure what cash flow is going to be like at high level. Once I get farther into the game, we'll know a little bit more about that. We'll be able to update you on it. And right now, we're just talking about the basic stuff. So, unfortunately, if home building is something you're into, it's not something you're going to get to do right away. Which is kind of unfortunate, but I sort of expected that that would be the case going into the game. Another aspect of your character's evolution, of their growth as you're playing, is your attribute points. Every so often, you'll be awarded attribute points. They'll show up on your HUD with this little icon right here. It looks like a box with like a cat or a dog face on it. And you can assign your points. One thing I like about this over some other MMOs I've played is it actually tells you in the tooltip which classes use what stats and what those stats do for that class. So I am very, very pleased with that. Of course, I'm a rune blade, so I use strength, dexterity, and critical hit rate, which I'm going to go ahead and dump this point into strength. And then you don't have to save on this. On your skill points, though, I will show off real quick. You do need to... Let me find it. There we go. You do need to save after you set, and you can, of course, reset skills. But there are... I assume there are going to be costs at higher levels to do that. Right now, it doesn't look like there are any to do that. And then, of course, you have different builds you can do. Now, the builds, you will have to spend paid currency to unlock the additional tabs for that. One final thing I want to cover, one last mechanic that's kind of a staple of most modern MMOs, especially your pay-to-play MMOs, is the Dungeon Finder. Now, this game does have a Dungeon Finder. It is accessed by pressing the semicolon on the keyboard. I have not figured out quite yet if there is a button that does it. Oh, there is a button that does it on the controller. It's Start. I just learned that right here with you. And this will show you the different adventures you have access to. Clearing each dungeon every time you clear it gets you a chest which contains rewards that include things like elixirs, revive vouchers, and you'll also get some gear. This will show you, the gear here next to the Find Party buttons will show you which dungeons you have a high enough level to queue for. Right now, I can queue for everything up through Golden Tower, and I'm going to go ahead and queue for one real quick to show you how this works. All right, so we've popped our queue, we click yes, and it's going to take us to the dungeon lobby. Now, the dungeon lobby is this cool little waiting room, which it looks like the dungeon's already ready, so you just walk to the portal on the right, you hit your X button, and it lets you teleport in.
You'll never survive to see the next floor.
Now, this is not a dungeon I've done, but we're going to go ahead and do it so I can show you how dungeons work and what kind of experience you can expect with dungeons in MapleStory 2. You can expect me getting stuck on the terrain because I'm garbage. Oh, I have to, it's not gonna let me jump over. The reason that I thought I would be able to jump over is there is actually a map that you go to for a story quest around level, I think, 10 or 15 that does let you jump over walls like that, but that one has barbed wire, so I should have expected that I would not be able to get over it that easily. And then here's the dash I mentioned earlier, and it goes on its little cooldown. Rune blades have this really cool skill that you just saw me use there, that actually it's a gravity rune and it pulls everybody toward the middle. I just really enjoy that. It's just fun to do. Alright, so here's another boss fight. I decided to go ahead and jump ahead because I had a bit of an issue with a stack of tires that I picked up and was unable to put down. So I decided to go ahead and jump.
I must focus.
I need to get out of combat for a sec. Potion up. And you can see there's a lot of effects going on that can sometimes make it very, very difficult to see what's going on. It doesn't look like we actually have a healer.
My spirit is low.
And also, this is a very early dungeon. This is a level, I think this is the level 21, the first level 21 dungeon. So the boss isn't going to pull off a lot of things. There's actually a really cool tree boss that I'll upload a video of at some point. And that's the boss. That's the dungeon. So this is the dungeon end screen, and if you want to see more about how you did, it will show you. And then it shows you also what loot you got. So I got a Graphena helm fragment, which you collect enough of those, and you can get the Graphena helm. And then I got a special slim blade. I got some experience, some mesos, which are gold. And then it shows your clear time, and I will leave party. And that's about it for the basic mechanics of MapleStory 2. There are crafting elements, but the game doesn't start introducing them to you until you're almost level 20. And even then, I haven't encountered them in the world while adventuring, the opportunity to use those gathering and crafting elements yet. But who knows? Maybe we'll do a part 2 of this if this is something you guys enjoyed, where I talk a little bit more about some of the mechanics and other parts of the game that I didn't cover, and maybe show off some more dungeons or other gameplay as well. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks to Nexon for sponsoring this video, and we will see you next time.